Episode 131, weighing in with Travis Hartman. I am B Money, the producer. That over there is the Talent Weekend. Trav, wow, fresh off the heels of Terrence Crawford destroying Errol Spence Jr. in that ring on Saturday night. Weekend, Trav. We did a quick shots episode about that. It's in the catalog. If you subscribe to our content, you should see it there on YouTube or Rumble or wherever else. But Weekend, Trav, we want to finish up our comments about this thing. Terrence Crawford, pound for pound, is the number one fighter of the world at this juncture, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, even the fact that he turned you because you were on the Inoue train, as if everybody was,
and still, number two.
This is like not any kind of a take on Inoue not being qualified. It's just that Terrence Crawford cemented himself into the history books. 1, 2. He regained his pound-for-pound status, I think, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Not because of the win, but how he won.
So dominant, in dominant fashion Weekend, Trav. It was, when we broke this down on the Quick Shots episode, round 1, we think of the fight Spence and Crawford. Probably went Spence's way, just more volume. But then round 2, Crawford put him on the canvas for the first time in Spence's career, by the way, and that changed the complexion, the dynamic of the whole fight going forward.
It did, man. Like you could tell that Spence became instantly hesitant.
Yes.
When he started throwing his punches. That first round, both guys were super confident, you could just see the confidence. Second round, after the knockdown, Spence's confidence, you could see everything. It just he was completely deflated of all confidence.
Yeah.
Everything he threw was like desperation throws.
Yep. It's interesting.
It wasn't even snappy.
It's interesting because if you watch any of Errol Spence's prior fights, and what he's known for is pressing the action, pushing forward. But Weekend, Trav, how many times do we see him being moved back on his back feet, not confident enough to try to instill any damage? And you heard it in his corner as well, as the cameras and microphones were there in between rounds, what his coach was trying to tell him. Do something.
Yeah.
Have some action. Push forward. And you just didn't see it. Like you said, deflated, I think. The confidence was just eroded at that point.
The toughest part about fighting generational talent like Terrence Crawford, it's impossible to find sparring partners or any kind of preparation that is going to be just like him. You're never going to find a guy that was fast enough like Crawford, that had the punching power like Crawford, that had the reflexes like Crawford, that had counter-punching abilities like Crawford. You're not going to find that in somebody. So when you step in that ring with somebody like that, he got a quick peek at, oh my gosh, Terrence Crawford's balance and his counter-punching ability was something that we were not prepared for. Because how do you prepare for that? There's nobody like Terrence Crawford.
That's the thing. I mean, we knew going in, and Crawford made it very clear that he was planning on spending most of the time as a lefty in there. Obviously, Spence Jr. is a lefty. So for those two, it was going to be kind of like the first time they both had to approach a left-handed fighter for an extended period of time in a fight. So that we thought was going to be more the interesting story in the whole matchup. But obviously, after round 2, it really didn't matter because what you mentioned, the counterpunching, the balance, which was incredible, but the mixture of speed and power and precision, which is another one we didn't really talk too much about, how precise he was.
We did. I said he pinpointed his punches.
So
precisely.
60% of his power punches landed. So that's outside the jabs, everything outside of jabs. 60% of Crawford's volume landed and were effective on Spence Jr. That's mind-boggling.
But first of all, 60% of the time it works every time.
That's right.
But why that is actually amazing, because most of your percentages on power punches, it's in the 20 to 30s range.
Right.
So for people listening now, why 60% is insane? It's normally 20 to 30%.
And and when they were looking at all the stat scores, Spence actually had more body shots still.
Yeah.
Wild. Most of these shots were devastatingly to the face and the upper body of Errol Spence rather than body shots, because that's where Crawford was. He saw it. He found his openings.
Exactly
he was
right.
so slick in there. So slick.
I mean, is there any time that you see Terrence Crawford off balance?
No.
That's the thing. And I said this in the beginning. He's super athletic, but he's not just athletic. The guy is always in position for a defensive move, offensive move. His defense was phenomenal. Did you see how calm he was in there too? It was insane. And that's why Crawford has that it factor. And I genuinely hope now, because I love Crawford. I do. I've been a big fan of his because I knew what he had. And I've been in the ring with him and I knew what he had. But I think that now he deserves the credit, and I hope that he starts to get the fanfare, because he just dethroned the guy.
Yeah.
And Crawford doesn't sell. He doesn't. So now I think this was his fight to where now I think he sells.
Yeah, I think you still need the personality to be like the sales guy to sell the fight. So talent aside, he has it. He has more talent than anyone we could think of at this point. But I think you still need a few more elements to be the seller of fights, right?
Do you think Spence has personality?
No, not at all.
But he sold. He used to sell at arenas.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how.
It might be image.
But I think it was his style
could be
of fighting,
some. It could be, I mean, Crawford's the look is plain vanilla, right? So I mean,
which is odd because he's not vanilla.
Yeah, not. Well, not. But I'm just saying, like there's no flash to it. Like the way he shows up to stuff, press conferences, everything. It's what you see is what you get, and very impressive. We can trap. We talked about this in the quick shot segment. Where now do each of these two fighters go from here?
I love this conversation because everybody, as soon as one guy loses one time, it's like, oh, he's done, or oh, sure, Spence was overrated, blah, blah. And if anybody tries to come at me with Spence is overrated, don't you dare at me on Instagram because I will literally crap on it. Spence was not overrated. His resume was legit.
Sure.
He didn't beat tomato cans. And I said it before, he had a better resume than Crawford going into this fight. Spence had fought higher caliber guys. Crawford had fought a couple because they shared a similar opponent. And I forget Sean Porter. They shared that opponent, and Kell Brook as well. But other than that, 100%, Errol Spence had a better resume. So the guy was legit. The fact that Crawford dismantled him so easily doesn't speak to the fact that Errol Spence wasn't good. It speaks to the fact of how great Terrence Crawford is.
That's true.
So I hope people don't throw him under the bus now. And where do they go from here? It's one loss. And I think if Errol Spence does try to initiate his rematch clause, because he does have one, he has 30 days, I think he gets beat again. I don't know about if he gets beat even worse. I think next time they're going to be a lot more cautious and probably keeps his hands up a lot more, not throw as much because he doesn't want to get countered. So I don't think it'll be the same. But I think it'll be the same result, meaning Crawford still wins.
Styles make fights. This isn't a good style for Spence to be in the ring against.
No.
So Crawford, and you could tell post-fight stuff, post-fight interviews, just kind of the demeanor. Crawford had heard the criticism for years. And he took it to heart. He's ducking fighters. He's not all. Why is he in the pound-for-pound discussion? Who is he beat? Why is he not fighting elite caliber fighters? He referenced all these in the interviews after the fight, made mention of it, because he wants to make sure that people who are writing these checks need to now cash them on him, right? Yep. So he's aware. He's aware of those that have been critical of him in the media, in the sports world going forward, and he has a good mental list of that, and he deserves all his accolades. He deserves the hardware he got last night. He deserves to be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world right now.
He does.
Weekend Trav. We talked about the fight in the quick shot segment. We talked about the fight here. The fact that he's #1 pound-for-pound. But I want to use that to segue into what we discussed also on the quick shots is the Mount Rushmore of fighters. Now it's hard because there's so many eras, but we wanted to at least consolidate down. The Mount Rushmore of the 2000s era of fighters. So that's 4 faces, Weekend Trav.
23 years.
That's hard.
I can only pick 4 faces.
We were rattling off a lot of names prior when we were doing pre-production stuff. But obviously, you know, Terrence Crawford, who has now done this in 2 different weight classes, the first male boxer to do this.
Ever. Literally ever.
Weekend Trav. I throw it to you.
Man.
You are the expert.
Yeah.
You are the professional.
These are tough. These are extremely tough. I do have my 4, but I said it when we were talking about it on the podcast, episode 130, episode 129 even. I said that if either guy, and I put either guy, if either guy knocks the other guy out in this fight, because you don't see knockouts in elite level fights, not generally, and I said generally, I didn't say every time, but you don't. So I was like, if somebody is able to knock the other guy out, they have to be on the Mount Rushmore, and I'm there. Terrence Crawford right now, and he's not even done yet.
No.
So this is early that I'm putting him on there.
35 years old.
Terrence Crawford is on my Mount Rushmore right now. He's a new face. We're just carving him in. He's definitely new. And then Floyd Mayweather, without a doubt.
Sure.
Without a doubt, the greatest of his generation, which is easily the entire 2000 to 2023. He has to be the best fighter.
You don't agree with these
15-0.
two so far? Because I know some people don't like the Floyd pick.
I know.
Let us hear it. Let us hear it.
Nobody
We
beat that
want
guy.
comments.
That guy's got a Hall of Fame resume as well. Look at his resume. Look
Yeah.
how many Hall of Famers he beat. Look at how many world champions he beat. A ton.
But Weekend
I think it was
Trav,
28.
he fought them when they weren't, past their prime.
BS.
Okay.
He was older than Pacquiao when
Yeah.
they fought, and everybody was like, "Oh, he fought." I was like, Mayweather's 2 years older than Pacquiao. So okay, he was older, but so was Mayweather.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, you guys can argue with me all you want. I have good stats for why Mayweather should be without a doubt. So Crawford, Mayweather, Bernard Hopkins, because Bernard Hopkins had 20 title defenses at middleweight. I think he tied like Joe Lewis's record or somebody's like, or maybe no, he beat it. He broke that record
Who would be
with
a
the
different-
most
who would be a different
middleweight,
era.
most middleweight title defenses.
That's a different era, Mount
Phenomenal.
Rushmore for sure.
Yes.
Him, yeah.
It could be for sure, yes. But also, Bernard Hopkins won a world title at the age of 49.
Yeah.
He beat a 28-year-old, legit 28-year-old world champion to win that title. Bernard Hopkins, just go into your bank right now and think how old you are. Me and B-Man are 40. He was 49. He beat a 28-year-old to win a world title at a weight class that wasn't even his. He moved up to 175 light
49. I'm as a 40-year-old going on 41 here shortly. I throw my back out when I sneeze. So it's not even a comparison.
So that's why I put him up there.
Okay.
49, not just because of that, but
But the
49 years old.
20 title defenses alone.
How do you sneeze at that? I think he has the record for the most middleweight title defenses, which is insanely phenomenal.
So here is then the question we can try, because there's only 4 slots.
Yeah.
And there's got to be another face, and there's a lot of names. We've talked about a bunch of them. Some people will mention more recent names like a Tyson Fury. Maybe Pacquiao gets in the conversation. In a way, but Inoue's 30 years old. He has a lot of time to go, so who knows? Maybe he'll find his way on there. Maybe he is on there. There's a lot of other names available. Usyk, there's many.
You're not wrong. I have to go with Canelo Alvarez as my 4th.
I think it's almost a default pick, yeah.
Because what he's done as well, he turned pro at 138 pounds. Yeah. 140, 147, 154, 160, 168, 175.
Amazing.
He won titles, all of those.
Amazing, yeah.
Even at 175, he knocked out Sergey Kovalev to win a portion of the light heavyweight title. Amazing, okay? And his career's not done yet either, but I do think it's probably
on the other side.
Yeah. Again, he's at the peak, but he's just approaching over it. He is. Even though he's only 34, I think, but he's had a lot of pro fights. Okay, he's been in a lot of fights.
We're talking Crawford's at 35, and he still has years to go. He is striking his peak years right now.
Yeah, and it's weird how I can say that, but Canelo turned pro at 16 years old,
that's wild.
Crawford didn't turn pro until his 20s, So that's the only reason that I say that about Canelo. He's been in massive fights for a long time, and he's done some massive things. So I had a lot of, not regrets, but I had a lot of, it was a toss-up between a lot of different fighters of this era. And I definitely settled on those 4, and I'm pretty confident that those 4 deserve it. There's some people that are still fighting that can get there, and I think Tyson Fury was probably my honorable mention. But also, you cannot disregard a guy like Lennox Lewis. And the reason I put Lennox Lewis up there is because he was probably more in the later 90s, early 2000s. So I don't think he had as much body of work from 2000 to 2023. But he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Klitschko was phenomenal as well. He went on like an 11-year span where he didn't lose one single fight.
Yeah.
But he also didn't have a lot of dance partners to dance with either. But Fury also beat him.
Yeah.
So did Anthony Joshua. Obviously, it was at the end of his career.
But we look at the 4 names you put forward: Terrence Crawford, Floyd Mayweather, Bernard Hopkins, Canelo Alvarez. They have had and have the body of work.
100%.
Different weight classes. Maybe not. Well, Floyd, I think he jumped up once, didn't he?
No, he jumped 135. He turned pro.
That's right.
So he jumped up 3-4 weight classes.
So
too.
Between the body of work, the longevity, the records, the titles, all these things, I don't think that's a bad 4. What did we miss? What did Weekend Trav miss? Who is on your Mount Rushmore,
Come
folks?
at me, bros. Come at me. Come on. This is
Do you
my
think,
realm.
Do you think he's crazy for even throwing Bernard Hopkins on that list? Are there any others that we just forgot completely of? Or are we just being jaded and one-sided because of our American view of fighters and who's just here? I mean, who are we not thinking of in the 2000s, okay? We're not talking 90s. You mentioned,
Lennox Lewis.
Lennox Lewis, who maybe you can make the argument one way or another. But
Tyson was there.
we were trying to talk prior.
Roy Jones Jr.
Which
I think they were all in the 90s.
I think that's 90s, which is interesting because we tried to talk about prior to the show, like, well, what are the eras then? Because the 90s, man, that just seems like they're all in a league of their own. And can you even mix them in with any of the 80s guys? I don't know. It's just weird how you kind of draw the line in the sand.
I don't know.
You can make the same arguments in other sports, basketball, football, things like that too. So that makes it a little interesting as well. So that is Weekend Trav's Mount Rushmore, the 2000s era. Terrence Crawford, Floyd Mayweather, Bernard Hopkins, and Canelo Alvarez. Interesting stuff. Weekend Trav, we switch gears. You good with that?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, because I know where we're going.
I know, but are you sure are you good with are you fine? You good with that 4?
Yeah, that's there.
I feel like you're hesitant a little.
I mean, it's because I genuinely hate this greatest of all time talk. When people try, who's the greatest of all time? Is it Ali?
I give you 4.
I know, but I hate it because there's so many great fighters,
and I
feel sliding. I'm sliding.
Well, that's the thing,
and I don't want to because there's so many great ones that people haven't even heard about. Probably,
but that's the thing. We're not trying to slight anybody or discredit anybody else or whatever else. We just think from an impact standpoint.
I think those 4 guys. I mean, like Hopkins had amazing stories
in those eras, in those time frames. How these guys, to one degree or another, have pulled non-boxing watchers and fans into this side.
Did you know Bernard Hopkins lost his pro debut? He started his professional career 0-1. Even more of a phenomenal story. He also was in prison for 5 or 6 years and got out when he was like 25 or 26. Got put on 20-year probation. Lasted out his probation 20 years and finally got off of it. Obviously, when he's 46, finally got off of his probation after he's already been a world champion, already did all these things in boxing. And the guy's story is phenomenal. So that's why I put him there. Not only because of his 20 title defenses, because of his story. 0-1 B-Money. How many boxers out there turn pro, lose their pro debut, and say, "No, I'm still going to do this."
Hey.
Most people lose their pro debut like, well, maybe this wasn't meant for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guarantee you people around him, his family members, his brothers, his sisters, anybody else was probably like, "Bro, you lost your pro debut and you probably didn't make very much. What are you doing? Go get a job." And he didn't.
Yep.
Goes on to be one of the greatest middleweights of all time.
Determination, perseverance, all the stuff we like to hear about in our sports athletes that we revere. So, Weekend Trav, let's switch gears here because you know your favorite fight's coming up. I know we talked about a lot about Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. in the lead up to that fight, but man, blockbuster fight here, August 5th on DAZN. Nate Diaz, Jake Paul. For some fake belt that Jake Paul created for himself.
Oh, it's
I don't know. I don't think it is.
Oh.
I
wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's not one of the 4 recognized belts, though.
No, it's not.
I know that for sure.
No, it's not. So I don't even know any of the details of the weight, the catch weight, anything like that. How many rounds? All I know is this is a former MMA superstar. I don't know if you call him a superstar, but a star for sure. Nate Diaz has a following, has a fan base. Obviously on the other side of that career a bit, and then one Jake Paul. Okay, is it worth the buy?
Yes, but for entertainment value, yes. For boxing value as a professional boxing match, I've said this over and over, no. But I'm not hating on it because I think entertainment-wise, Jake Paul is entertaining. He is. The kid is entertaining. The same as Nate Diaz. Super entertaining. Is Nate Diaz a very good boxer? Hell no. Is Jake Paul a good boxer? He's actually decent. I respect his work ethic. Work ethic's
good.
But his boxing's not terrible. But are we going to watch a quality boxing match like we watched last weekend with the welterweights, Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence? Hell no. You're not going to see that level of boxing. But are you going to be entertained? Meaning you're going to see some punches thrown. You're going to see some blood probably. You're going to see some guys get rocked. And I believe it is a 10-round fight, which is pretty phenomenal.
Oh, that's right. They did up that.
Jake Paul, in his own credit,
a lot of rounds.
He's like, 6 pro fights he's had? 7 pro? I think he's 6-1 now maybe. He's fighting in a 10-rounder already. That's pretty amazing.
a lot of
Even
rounds.
though it's versus Nate Diaz, doesn't matter. It's still both guys have to train for a 10-rounder. So, to the point, is this worth the buy? Yes. Know what you're getting when you pay for it. If you want to see high-level boxing or important level of boxing, you're not. Because
No.
this fight, the winner or the loser of this fight, changes the landscape of boxing zero.
That's a good way to put it.
And that's the truth,
I
though.
think, unfortunately, the fight lost a little bit of its luster, the potential of this fight, when Jake Paul lost to Tommy Fury.
A little bit.
Now, because then it's
real boxer.
sure who is now
Spotify
who's now
listeners,
fighting
air quoted.
who's now going to be fighting KSI, another. Oh,
He's
wait,
going to
no.
knock off a YouTuber probably. He'll
Yeah,
probably
great.
beat him.
Hey, you got to be known for something in this world, right? And you got to be paid for something. So more power to him.
They're making money.
But so Nate Diaz, okay, it's intriguing, I guess. Nate Diaz is no slouch. I mean, he has stand up. It's just different when you put on boxing gloves versus MMA gloves or just bitch slapping somebody
Every
in public.
MMA fighter has come across this when they stepped over to the
Yeah.
boxing realm. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm going to say it again. It's downright disrespectful for a boxer. As much as these MMA guys come over and just think that they can just box because it's that easy.
Right.
You don't see boxers in their prime going over to MMA because you know why? One, we're getting paid in boxing, so we don't need to. But two, we know our strengths. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I punch? Yes. Can a lot of these guys punch? Yes, we can. But there's also more martial arts that we have to know to compete in a UFC ring. Okay. The UFC guys coming over to boxing. Boxing's a lot harder than you think, which
Yeah.
is why every time one of your top guys have came over, they've been stretched.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
Jake Paul stretched Tyrone Woodley, who was a legit world champion UFC fighter. Conor McGregor, legit world champion UFC fighter, got knocked out by Floyd Mayweather. These guys aren't just losing; they're getting knocked out.
Yeah.
Ben Askren knocked out in the first round by Jake Paul. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that boxing is different, guys. You're disrespecting it a little bit when you come over here thinking that you can just jump in and be amazing. It's not easy.
That's why I think everyone needs to pump the brakes on the future fight with Fury and
And
Ngannou. Pump the brakes, guys. I know Ngannou is a big dude, and yes, he's a striker, but he's not a boxer, okay? It's an intriguing matchup, and you never know what can happen, but come on.
That's why they fight the fights, I guess.
Come on. Like you mentioned, there's a reason why you don't see boxers go in the other direction, because that would be dumb. Why would you?
The only
Why would you
boxers
get in a
have tried-
cage?
Retired boxers have tried it, like James Toney tried it. He was like 40-something years old, and he got his ass kicked.
No, of course.
Ray Mercer did it, got his ass kicked.
Because it's two different sports.
It is.
Two different sports.
I won't disrespect
There's
UFC.
some carryover to between
There is,
disciplines.
there is.
But not. It's just two different sports. So Nate Diaz, Jake Paul, okay. August 5th, okay. It's on DAZN, yeah, okay. We'll talk about it after.
Is it? It better not be $84, which is what Crawford Spence was.
I
If
know
it's $84.
which
I'll
you
balk
spent,
at that.
and then I also spent too. That's
We
why
both
these
got
guys.
it.
That's why these
You guys are
guys.
welcome.
That's why.
Weighing in with Travis Harbin gave you 2 buys,
Yeah.
84 each.
That's why you walk away, both of you, with 8 figures on that one. So we can Trev, that fight's coming up. I mean, some other news and headlines. I know Beterbiev, he's out. Some dental work, so that fight's gotten postponed.
A bone infection, they said. That's not good.
Not good
To
for a
his
boxer,
jaw.
for sure.
Yeah.
What did I miss, Week in Trev?
I don't think you missed much. I mean, we touched on everything, and I think it's just important that everybody knows that Jake Paul's fighting. It is newsworthy. Is it newsworthy on the scope of major boxing scene? No.
No,
But it is newsworthy.
And to be honest, it's hard to get all excited about that after this past weekend. After that
Right.
massive
Yeah.
welterweight matchup, how do you get excited about Nate Diaz and Jake Paul?
I think they messed up. I think they should have did it 1 week
Yeah.
before, and it's fine. Now you're gonna follow. You can not. Well, we do say this, but it is also Nate Diaz. He's crazy. He might do something like body slamming, and then everybody's like, "This was."
But keep in
amazing.
mind, from what I've heard, and now Nate Diaz is on board, potentially those two having an MMA matchup after the boxing matchup, obviously down the road.
Good for Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Because that's ballsy though.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, seriously, think about it. He knows that his forte is boxing, and Nate Diaz is his UFC.
Correct.
He was a world champion in UFC. Like, the guy obviously knows how to fight. So Jake Paul knows how to make money, but you know what? Also, Jake Paul's also not shying away from fighting guys, man.
I think
mean,
I would be more
he's fighting
interested.
these guys.
I'd be more interested to purchase the MMA fight.
I think I'll watch both. I will watch both. I will watch. I think Nate Diaz is in over his head a little bit. Which is crazy.
It's weird though because he's so rangy, and it's the awkward nature. After watching,
it's going to be a struggle.
For instance, after watching the Isaac Cruz fight on this Spence and Crawford card, he fought. I can't remember who he fought, but the guy had a weird style and stance, and it's kind of open, and he was just long and rangy and taller than Cruz. Everyone's taller than Cruz, but that was weird. It was awkward. That's kind of what I see coming up. Jake Paul looking almost orthodox kind of as a boxer, but Nate Diaz has a very awkward stance, and he's very long. His length, he has a bigger reach, and it should be interesting.
How tall is he? Over 6 foot?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. I could be wrong. I mean, correct us if you want, but we don't know a lot of the specs on this one. Anyway, so that's coming up August 5th, weekend draft.
Isaac Cruz's fighter he fought was Giovanni Cabrera.
Yeah.
Out of Mexico.
Yeah, and with Freddie Roach. He came out with Freddie Roach, so.
Actually, I'm wrong. Of Seattle.
Yeah, but he was fighting out of Roach's gym, right?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe that's why he's from Seattle, but maybe he was training out of Roach. Roach was in his corner?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's pretty. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even notice that.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. B Money.
I'm watching.
Nice.
Anyways, weekend draft, final thoughts.
Do I have to say it again? It's 2023. It's the Michael Jordan year for boxing, which means it's the GOAT for boxing, the greatest of all time year for boxing. Do I need to say more? We've now had, it's July, 7 months in, and now we've also had, on top of all the other amazing fights, we've also had the first male boxer to ever win titles, 4 major belts in the 140 and the 147. Now that's on the checklist of 2023.
Yeah.
I am going to make a resume towards the end of this year of all the blockbuster fights and just lay them over compared to all the other years. Even the golden era of the 4 Kings years, this year has been phenomenal.
My concern, we can travel off of your final
We've
thoughts.
also had a woman do it too.
To mine. Oh, well, yeah. Make sure you mention that 100 times, like Showtime had to.
Quote.
Give me a break. How many are in those divisions? How many potential fights? Anyways, so off of your final remarks to mine, here's my concern now with the Michael Jordan year. Are we now, though, entering duck season? We have Devin Haney stepping up, avoiding Shakur Stevenson. We have all these other guys talking a lot of nonsense. But will anything come to fruition for the last 5 months of the year? I'm not sure we can trap other than what's already on the calendar.
I don't think so, and this is because of what I was saying before this Terrence Crawford fight. I told everybody, please buy this fight, and it turned out to be a great fight to watch. I now think that the numbers are going to be pretty big. I wouldn't be surprised to see 1 million pay-per-view buys. 1 million is great. That's great numbers. If you can hit the 1 million, that's what they're always targeting. If Crawford and Spence hit that $1 million pay-per-view buy mark, then I don't think we're going to see as many ducks as you think, because promoters and TV now are going to say, hey, guys, we're going to pay you, and we're going to pay you well because the consumer wants it. So if they're paying big money now, these guys can't duck anymore. The reason why a lot of guys ducked, and the reason why a lot of people thought Mayweather was ducking, he was building a fight to get more money. And what happened? He got more money. So now we can skip all the build, and the promoters will be like, hey, we got more money, let's fight.
But I think that comes beyond this year. We can
It'll be tough.
Because we have Canelo, we have Charlo coming up. Is that in September? We have Fury ducking and fighting a guy who's coming from the MMA ranks. Okay, we have other heavyweight fights, but that's nothing. They're not Joshua. Exciting. Those aren't the ones we want to see.
Unless we can get a Wilder Ruiz, I'd want to see that one for sure.
Yeah, but it's
blockbuster. You're right. We don't have blockbuster heavyweight fight.
I think we have been,
which could follow up into 2024.
I think maybe, but I'm just saying. I think for being a very great year, I think the best of it is behind us now. The first 7 months of the year.
Could be.
Sorry.
But we do have
Debbie
fights.
Downer.
We do have big fights to be made still.
Debbie Downer. Okay. That's all I got to say.
I'm enjoying it. Are you not enjoying Boxing Arena, man?
Are you not entertained? That over there is a talent weekend, Trev.
That there is B Money, a.k.a. producer, a.k.a. the man, the myth, the legend, B Money.
God bless.